Uh, this close to the trade deadline, and I've talked about the Oilers before, and I've talked about the Oilers' problems, but when you look at this lineup right now, it's anemic, is a word for it. Now Nugent Hopkins is out, Larson's out, Sekera is out, Caggiula's out. The only one of the four that's out that hurts them is Nugent Hopkins, who has 31 points in 46 games. Larson, 6 points in 40 games, and Larson's a stay-at-home defenseman, but still, you need more than an average of 12 points in a season out of him. Sekera with 1.18 games when he's played, he's looked awful in games I've watched. And Caggiula with 13 points in 43 games, they probably expected a little more out of him. But you look at what the lineup is right now, and wow, this is not fun. And the problem too is the other problem that comes into this is simple. It's a matter of um, I don't want to do what I did last time. Last time I made Oilers fans angry with what I talked about, and yet um, I've kind of been right since then. I mentioned the last time I talked about what was wrong with the Oilers. I said Lucic doesn't look good, and it was pointed out to me at the time. Hey, Lucic is on pace for the same amount of points he had last year. He's fine. He now has no goals in the last 20 games. And I want to say it was probably roughly around then that I talked about how Lucic was having some problems. He's had no points in the last 9 games. He can't skate with McDavid. And that's the big thing. Now, um, we all looked at the Lucic contract and said, wow, that's a lot of term. For a power forward, power forwards tend to slow down earlier than do finesse players. Just the punishment they put themselves through tends to slow them down a little quicker. This is quicker than expected. He has 9 goals in 56 games. They can't trade him. There's nothing you can do with it. You don't do you buy it out at the end of the year? Like, I don't know what you do. And part of the problem I have is I like Peter Chiarelli. This is not a good team, but it's his team. McDavid's got 14 points in the last 10 games. Draisaitl's got 14 points in the last 10 games because together they're the only guys that know how to score. Next up, Camilleri has 6 points in his last 6 games, which is kind of a surprise until you look at who his line mates are. And yet, Lucic has nothing in 9 games, and look at who his line mates are. So maybe Camilleri's playing better than Lucic. Didn't expect that one. Strome has no points in his last 5 games, which is stunning considering who his line mates are. And Maroon 3 points in 9 games. I got these lines off dailyfaceoff.com, and it's not a matter of who's on what line right now because I know it's always fluid. I know it's going to change during the game, but it's just a matter of look at those wingers. Is there a winger that can score on this team? This is why the idea of you could trade Nugent Hopkins for Hoffman, sure, but that's not going to fix what's wrong with the Oilers. Puljujarvi only 1 assist in his last 9 games. Don't rush prospects, everybody. And 39 games and 15 points. And Oilers fans have been very defensive anytime I've talked about Puljujarvi. The funny thing is, he's a year younger than Virtanen. I want to say a year, or a little over a year. At the point where Virtanen had played this many games in his career, everybody was calling him a bust. Nobody's saying that about Puljujarvi. I'm certainly not. I wouldn't dare. Slepyshev, 26 games, 6 points. Slepyshev, the efforts there. Kara, 16 points in 33 games. Kara's a heart and soul guy. I don't know what his ceiling is offensively, but again, right now they have him playing in the middle because of the Nugent Hopkins injury. Pakarinen, 2 points in 24 games. You get no offense out of him. Energy guy. Letestu, 18 points in 55 games. That's about right for Letestu. And Cassian with 15 points in 55 games. And Cassian's kind of a fourth line guy who can hit and cause trouble, but he can also be trouble for your team. The blue line is where it just disappears. Clefbaum, 5 points in 18 games. Oscar Clefbaum proving me wrong at every turn when it comes to me talking about how solid. He was great last year. He was fantastic. And this year it's just been awful. Darnell Nurse, who's had a good year, still 0 points in 10 games. Nurse is not an offensive defenseman, but when you've got Russell, Davidson, Ovitu, and Benning as your other four defensemen, you really need more offense than what you just have. Davidson, 4 points in 19 games. Russell, 20 points in 56 games. Russell's been solid for Edmonton. I don't think they regret having him in the lineup, but he's going to end up playing more minutes than he should, especially with Larson out and Sekera out. But when Sekera's in the lineup, he's kind of useless anyways. V2 is a 7 guy, and Benning has really regressed this year. So last year at this time, we were all talking about what a revelation Matt Benning's been for the Oilers and how stupid Jim Benning was for not signing his own nephew. And you look at Benning right now, and honestly, I don't think he would crack the Canucks top 6 right now. I don't see it. And right now this team is tied with the Canucks in points. Let that one sink in. Talbot's 4-6 in the last 10 games. He's got decisions in, and in those decisions, his save percentage, 857. These are from newest to oldest. 857, 846, 912, 885, 941, 919, 818, 926, 944, 917. He has a 900 save percentage, 3.20 goals against average, a 19-21-2 record. Montoya's played 5 games with Edmonton. He's got a 1-1-1 record and an 895 save percentage to go with his 2.73 goals against. The reason that I put this on the board and the reason that I feel the need to do this going into the trade deadline is this is a disaster. And you have a GM right now who I don't think he's on the hot seat. I don't think Peter Chiarelli's on the hot seat because remember last year he was GM of the year. He was the best GM in the league, I guess. And you know, and I'm torn because I do like what he does. I but the thing is, Larson's falling back has made him look worse. Clefbaum not taking that step forward has made him look worse. Ryan Strome producing 0 points while Eberle still scoring goals for the Islanders, that makes him look really, really bad. Eberle on this wing would certainly help. They're not in the playoffs with Jordan Eberle, but he'd be ahead of Strome's 22 points in 56 games. The biggest issue on this team, other than this void of a blue line, which they would still have if they had Taylor Hall. They would still have this void of the blue line. And it would still be sinking them. They'd be scoring a lot more goals, certainly if they had Taylor Hall. But this blue line and the goaltending just hasn't been good enough. And the funny thing is, and this is the debate that I've had, Talbot's having a bad year. And a 900 save percentage is well below the league average. You don't get very long in the NHL of posting below average numbers as a goaltender before you're replaced. You don't get very long at all. I can't think of very many goalies other than maybe Kari Lehtinen where the numbers have been below average and he stayed with the team. But remember, Dallas replaced him with Ben Bishop this year. So I expect Edmonton to be in the market for a goaltender right now. The problem is Talbot makes a lot of money if they're going to decide that he's probably not going to be their starter. There's all kinds of parts here that, a year ago we're praising the wonderful job the Oilers have done and how far they've come, and now look at this team. It's a mess. So, going into the trade deadline, who do you move? Do you try to move Lucic? Everybody's saying, well, Maroon's going to go. Maybe they'll get a late first-round draft pick for him. And apparently the Bruins are in on Maroon. I hope they're noticing he's had 3 points in his last 9 games. And the problem with Maroon is his speed. And Boston plays a speed game. I don't think Maroon works in Boston. If Maroon goes to Boston, I'm genuinely concerned. Because he's not a fast guy. And who else do you move? You can't move Lucic. We agree that Strome isn't going to go unless they trade him off for nothing. But can you imagine the vitriol in Edmonton if they lose Eberle and then Strome just goes for a third-round draft pick or just trade him off? Camilleri they just got recently. Slapashev, Puljujarvi's not going anywhere. What's the market value for any of these guys? What's the market value? The guys that would be popular. Let's just play that game. So the Oilers say, all right, they're up for grabs. Anybody but Draisaitl and McDavid. They're all touchable. You can whatever you want. You can talk to us. So Maroon will attract interest because he's a power forward, and there's this perception among some GMs you still need that. Strome would not be popular, not at his cap hit, not with his production. Lucic would not either. Camilleri, no, because the league's about speed and youth. Slepyshev, I don't know that he's had enough games, enough points, enough to really warrant a lot of interest. Kara would definitely attract a lot of interest, and Oiler fans would riot, and rightfully so, if Kara was traded. Puljujarvi would attract a lot of interest again. Puljujarvi's still 19 years of age. 19, so you're not trading out Puljujarvi. That's not happening. Pakarinen, no interest. Letestu, no interest. Cassian, there might be some passing interest if you announce Cassian's available, but you're not going to get much back for him. Nurse would definitely warrant a lot of interest, but again, Darnell Nurse is your linchpin on the blue line. He's big, he's strong, and despite not having any points in the last 10 games, he's not bad with the puck, and he's got a little bit of a two-way game there. Clefbaum might attract interest, but Clefbaum's having a really bad year, so you're trading him potentially at below market value. You're risking him improving next year, and he's still young too. Russell, not much interest on trade block. V2, Benning, Nugent Hopkins would definitely be a very popular target, and we're going to hear a lot about him between now and next Monday. But do you move one of your only three guys who's putting up points? Can you do that? I know he's on the injured reserve right now, but can you really afford to lose Nugent Hopkins? And what is his market value? We can all debate on it, but what is Nugent? Is a team trading for him saying he's a second line center or a third line center? Because the asking price is going to be different. And if Edmonton says he's second line and another team goes, well, no, he's third line, there's going to be a debate about that. Larson would probably attract interest on the trade market, but again, you lost Taylor Hall for Adam Larson. If you're Peter Chiarelli, you need to hit a home run if you're going to trade Larson out. Same as with Strome. You've got these pieces now. If you lose them, you can't afford to lose them without getting something substantial back. And again, Larson is not an old man, and he can absolutely bounce back with another team. I'm telling you, if you put Adam Larson with, say, Anaheim, or you put Adam Larson with, throw him back on the East Coast, send him to the Rangers, send him to the Islanders, watch him turn it around. And that's the concern you have. So the guys with the asterisks either are guys that you aren't going to move or guys you're terrified to move because they can come back and bite you. Meanwhile, you got Lucic eating up a lot of cap and putting up no goals in 20 games and no points in 9. So there's my question to any Oiler fans and anybody. Other than fire Chiarelli is not the answer, because that's not what I'm asking. How do you fix this roster? And what prospect is coming up that's going to make this huge difference? I know Benson is having a good year this year, and Benson's come back into the conversation, but do you want to throw Tyler Benson into this? Is that advantageous to Tyler Benson's career to go, here you go, top 6 with the Oilers, have fun? Because it hasn't worked for Puljujarvi. And the Oilers, a team known 10 years ago for just rushing all their prospects into the lineup and ruining them, do they want to go back to that? Benson should have time in the American League, should not be up on this roster. And the other problem, the one thing I want to say as a finale here is, if you're an unrestricted free agent on July 1st, do you look at this team and you'll see it one of two ways. Either I have a chance to play with Connor McDavid, who is inarguably the best player in the league when you look at the amount of numbers put up by wingers and the fact he's still scoring. I know a lot of that's with Draisaitl. I know that. But just the fact he's still putting up points with this yard sale going on around him is just insane. But as an unrestricted free agent, do you look and say, I get a chance to play with McDavid? Or do you look at this team and say, oh, I'm not going to Edmonton. That team's a disaster. I'll sign somewhere else. You already have the fact that it's a Canadian market and there's certain free agents that don't want to play in Canada because of the amount of constant pressure and in Edmonton's case, the climate does work against them too. I mean, if you're 33 years of age and you've still got some mileage left, if you're 29 years of age, you're in your prime, whatever situation you're in, You have a choice to go down and play and live in Florida, or you have a chance to play and live in Edmonton. You're probably going to take Florida right now because Florida's got a better record. And I actually think right now, looking at it, Florida might have the better future. So is this a quick turnaround? Or is this just a sign that the Oilers are destined to nosedive? And everybody says, I'll end on this then. The idea that if that they'll somehow win the draft lottery and get Dahlin, does Dahlin fix the blue line? No, he's one man. Does Dahlin make this team a playoff team? No. Again, Oiler mentality. We got our player. Now we're going to the Stanley Cup playoffs. Whether it was Hall, Eberle, Nugent Hopkins, Yakupov, whoever they drafted in the first round, it was just, all right, in the lineup and go. We're going to make it. If they fall into that mindset again, even with a generational style talent like Dahlin, they're going to find themselves in the running for Jack Hughes next year. Yep. Word has it Jack Hughes is having a fantastic under 20 or under 18 tournament, and that Hughes is generating the most interest we've seen in the draft since Connor McDavid in a forward. Dahlin is a defenseman, and Jack Hughes is a forward. So is he going to be an Oiler too? There's the question. Thanks for watching. Hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through, and that's quite the way to start the day. I've got the other board behind this with all the previews, and we'll get into that in a minute.